back to Nick Vic Locks. Today we'll be talking about challenge locks, my approach and thoughts on making them, and making some pins and alterations to hopefully get you up to the blue belt. So the first thing that we have is I have the disassembled lock. There's the body. Taking it apart, my key pins are still here in the core, and the reason I do that is I want to take a look at where the pins sit in relation to the key pins, the drivers that is, because anything that's in the Bible, more or less basically what's sticking out of the core when your driver pin is placed on top of the key pin, unless you alter the Bible chambers, this material will be a non-factor in that lock. So everything below this line is what we are looking to modify and alter, because that's what's going to interact with the shear line and create the challenge or the difficulty offset feedback or whatever that's going to yield a challenge lock to actually give someone some trouble. So that's the first thing that I typically look at. You can get an idea of what's going on if you know what the key code is, and the type of lock. This one is mostly lower cuts, or I guess, yeah, low cuts. So the pins won't need to be moved all that much, and we can kind of see that here with how close they are to the shear line. But there are some low cuts in here that could give some trouble on really the two fives and the two sevens. So we have 595, 797. This lock we'll be making for a picker. Mastering the Locks is a small YouTube channel that's recently got into locksport. I believe he's currently a white belt level picker with the belt ranking system, but he was interested in getting a challenge lock, something to help improve his skills. So that's what we're going to be making today. We'll be putting together a lock for him. Given his familiarity with the locks and skill level, it might be helpful to see how the lock is made and what all's going into it. It's even knowing that information is probably still going to give a little bit of difficulty to the lock for him. So you can at least use this video to refer back to help him with it, and then learn different feedback and pen states and so forth with the lock to hopefully help improve his skill level. So I will not be making any core modifications on this lock. It'll all just be pen modifications, just to keep it as beginner friendly as possible with the lock. So I've actually already planned out what we're going to do here. So yeah, take that back. I have one alteration we're making to the core. So we'll get that taken care of. Get rid of that one. I thought about threading one of the chambers, but I do not have a tap that fits them. The M4 is too big and the M3 is too small. So no change for that one. We will also only be altering one key pin, and there will be two unaltered driver pins in this lock. Yeah, the two 9 cuts in chambers 2 and 5. We will not be altering those driver pins. So those will stay the same, and they're not going to be moving that much. So, normally with a low, I guess, whatever you want to call it, low pin, high pin, low cut, like with these 9s here, what I would normally do is I'd widen out the core here, do a tapered pin or a T-pin type of thing in it, and then also probably add serrations or torpedo the key pin to make it into an overset trap. That would at least be my go-to or thought on these pins that you don't have to lift that much. So, so what we're going to do here is we'll go ahead and add the serrations to our key pin number 5, and I'm counting 5 with 1 being here at the face of the lock, 6 being here at the rear. Some people will count them the other direction from right to left. It just is easier in my brain and makes more sense to count from left to right in the same direction that I would read. So I'll set that there for now. So for our tools to make the serrations, we're going to need some type of Dremel. Let's zoom out here. I've got this lovely rechargeable small one that I got on Amazon. I like to use a carbide tip scribe to help with starting some of the notches for serrations or anything else, because when I use the jeweler saw, it likes to slide around a lot, with it being as fine as it is and the teeth. It'll slide around before it can actually grab hold of it and really get in there, which will alter the diameter of your pin, which you may not want. I've also got a X-All blade. This is good for bulk removal. Needle files. And sandpaper, as well as different bits for the Dremel that I will not actually be putting into the Dremel. My key pins, or the pins that I'm altering, will go into the Dremel. So I'm going to get the pins set up in the Dremel and we'll go from there. Okay, so I have my key pin here in the Dremel, and our tapered or pointed end is obviously going to be down inside of the chuck here, because we don't want to alter that. We're only altering the top of the pin that's going to possibly interact with the shear line to cause somewhat an overset trap. So if it's overlifted, those serrations will kind of lock it there in between the core and the Bible and prevent the opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my carbide tip and turn this on, and I'm just going to kind of edge it here, and then we'll go back over with the jewelry saw or jeweler saw to refine those cuts. I didn't mention it when I went over the tools that I'll be using, but you'll also want to get eye protection and some type of face covering or mask. You really don't want to be inhaling flakes and dust of brass or any other metal. It's not exactly great for your health. So please wear proper protective equipment. Don't be stupid. But I'm also going to try to cut the audio during these sections so you don't have to listen to this loud Dremel. But here we go. Okay, so let's get this out of the chuck here. That kind of wiped off a little bit. And I'm happy with how that looks here. Let's get the tweezers. There we go. Let's zoom in a little. Fucking try to get this in the light. There we go. Get it to focus. Yeah. So we just put 2 serrations, and then the jewelry saw did slip a little, so there's a light third serration down there at the bottom. Not really picking up too well, but you're there. And let's see if I can let you hear it. There we go. So that is our key pin that's done, and the only key pin that we are altering. So now we're going to take a look at our drivers. So with the drivers, depending on the type of pin that I'm making, I can start or have started with pre-made pins. So you can buy security pins. This one is serrated already. This one is spooled already. It's already a spool. Spooled, it is a spool. So we can alter those. Let's see here. That goes there. All right. 5 and 2 get no alterations. So we'll go ahead and move those pins down. There we go. All right. Now, you can cut your own pins from brass if you get brass stock. And zoom back out again. Now, what I would recommend is if you're going to go with brass stock, buy it in the diameter that already fits the chambers for the lock that you are making. If not, you're going to have to file and mess with it to get it to the right diameter, and that can be time consuming. It can also lead to you having inadvertent tapered pins or pins with modifications that you did not plan or intend to be, which sometimes there can be happy mistakes, and sometimes not. So, but we'll load this up in here. Let's not do that. I already have some standard pins that we can use. There's my tweezers. Let's get this one. Get this one. Let's put this back, and let's get another standard pin so we can make some type of spool. Prefer a longer one. And we'll just go with that. All right. So pin 1 will be serrated. So let's get that down in here. And if we remember, we load pin 1 back up in here. Well, if we don't put it upside down. Since I'm making no alterations to the chambers in the Bible, I'm only really concerned about, there we go, this bottom half of this pin. That's what we're going to be altering, and it's roughly half the length of the pin. A little more than the height of my tweezers. Look, that seems perfect. That in, get our there, and get our jeweler saw. Get our eye protection and mask on, and we'll get the serrations. All right. So we have those serrations done. But if we look, if we drop that down in there, none of the serrations are present, meaning they will all be active and play a role when picking the lock. And ideally, that's what you want. Right, so our next pin that we are making is a spool in chamber 3. Cool. And for this, you don't have to drop your pin into chamber 3, because it's whether it's in chamber 1 or chamber 3, the height of the pin's not going to change. So you know where it's going to be. So with this being a spool, we're taking a bulk out here in the middle. It's not going to matter too much as to where it sits with the shear line, because the waist is going to be at the shear line. Now for this one, using the hacksaw blade just for bulk removal. And we'll get this one. It's not the prettiest looking spool. It's got some serrations in it, but it'll work for what we want here. So that will go with pin 3. And then the last 2 pins are going to be serrated pins, and we've made one of those already. So what we'll do now is we will take a look at widening this core. Now, what I like to use for that, if I can find it here, here it is. Just a little bit. It's wider than the hole for the pin stack, so it works well for it. And we're widening chamber 3. Get that in there. Get that tightened up. And we can see that that is a little bit wider than all of the other chambers, not by a whole lot, but enough to make a difference for tolerances. So, yeah. I'll get these last 2 pins made, and then we'll come back and assemble the lock. Okay, now that we have finished making all of our pins, we can go ahead and assemble our lock and see how it looks in the core itself. So we'll load all of our key pins here. And the only thing I did off camera, other than make the final 2 serrated pins, which get the focus here, turned out pretty nice. Was to go over chamber 3 that we widened with a little bit of 600 grit sandpaper, just to make sure that there were no burrs or anything and that it was smooth. Oh, come on. There it is. Now on chamber 6 here with that driver, I did end up making the serrations a little taller than they needed to be in terms of what's exposed and down into the chamber itself, but that's fine. Let's just get rid of these 2 non-factors. So if we take a look here, we can see that other than 6 that took the serrations a little too far up on it, everything else is going to interact and play with the lock as intended. We have wobble and play here with our spool, especially with the widened chamber and the core. That can give us our false set and counter rotation when it goes to be moved. So now let's get everything into the lock body and make sure our key works. Okay, so now we have our lock fully assembled, clip on the back and everything. Check to make sure that our key works, and it does. smooth. Now, I've had it happen before where the key doesn't want to operate as smoothly in or out. And what you can do in that case is all of the peaks, points, whatever, sharp edges, take those off. As long as you don't alter the bottom here where the pen will rest, you won't affect any of the bitting. You're just making it a little bit easier and smoother for the key to operate within the lock. I like to use a Leashy key cutter and just go to the peaks. Just kind of trim those down a little. Just be careful not to hit where the pins are going to rest. You're only wanting to take off the edges, the tips or the points, just to kind of smooth those out. You can do it with a file if you want it as well. Get those off. Focus. Key just looks a little smoother. Actually, it almost looks like you fastened it yourself. And sometimes that can help the lock to work a little smoother, especially if you're running into issues with high and low cuts adjacent to each other and you're pushing up against the limits of the MAC of that lock. But so here we are. The only thing left to do is to name it, and if you're making it for Blue Belt, you probably also want to engrave or do some artwork on it, because that can count towards the total number of modifications you have to have on it for it to qualify as your challenge lock for Blue Belt. We'll probably touch on challenge locks again at another point in the future, but these are just the basics that I go through when making it. Should get you up to making your first one at least. And said at the beginning of the video, I'm gonna say it again though. Wear a mask, wear glasses, don't do dangerous stuff. Understand that these tools can hurt you. You can injure yourself. The Dremel that I use is a lower RPM Dremel. And I've also been doing this for a bit and making a bunch of these. So I know what I'm doing with it. But if it's your first time, take every safety precaution that you can. Don't injure yourself. If you're picking locks, you need your fingers. And it's not going to do you any good if you take those out of the equation. So, yeah, so be smart about it. And, yeah, do it at your own risk. All right, well, I'll see y'all next time. And I think the next how-to video will probably be dimple locks. And we'll go over those and get you up to speed with that. But like, subscribe, comment, share. Do what you want. You're your own people. See y'all next time.